Okay, I have to give a little bit of a caveat before I start off this video. I just recently woke up very late in the day because I have an overnight shift tonight, but I wanted to get some filming done before I have to leave, and I'm not feeling completely with it. So we'll see how well this ends up being. And the video that I chose for today is something that was recommended to me a little while back. I honestly don't remember who recommended it, but I put it in my list as soon as I saw the recommendation. And it's for a comedian called Dave Allen. I don't think I've seen any of his stuff before. I don't recognize his name or his face. Maybe I have seen him. He just didn't seal himself in my brain. This is for a little bit called Teaching Your Kid Time. Apparently this came out in '93. So not super long, just under 6 minutes. Let's go ahead and see what he has to say about this subject.
So one of the most important things we as parents do is we teach our children about time. We teach them important things like reading the clock. You actually think that's important? I'm going to teach you to read the clock. I'm going to teach you to read the time. Why? Because it's important that you know the time. Why? Because how would you know when to get up to go to school? Mummy would make me. What if Mummy wasn't there?
Right.
You'd wake me. What if we both weren't there?
Right.
Wouldn't go to school.
Right.
How would you know when breakfast was? I'd be hungry. Shut up!
The basic common sense of children, right? You can't argue too much with that, can you?
Somebody came along to you and said, "What time is it?" and you didn't know, you'd feel stupid. Why doesn't he feel stupid? He doesn't know.
Right.
Let me go through this whole thing. I'm going to teach you. I did it myself, my son. I'm going to teach you how to read the clock. This is a clock. It's not actually a clock. It is a clock, but it's not a clock. It's a watch. It's called a watch.
It's confusing, right?
It's a wristwatch because it's on my wrist. Yes, it's a wristwatch because it's on my wrist and I watch it. Yes, it's very good. Now, time is made up of zones, periods of time, all right? There's hours,
really
minute. No, not hours. No, they're not hours. They're hours. They don't belong to us. It's a different spelling, H-O-U-R-S.
Right. English is super confusing when it comes to stuff like that, I swear. It's just crazy. I mean, I know all languages have similar sort of things, but boy, English, to a non-native speaker and to a child learning how to read and write, especially for a dyslexic, it's confusing and complicated. You have stuff like, does he have a short finger or is his finger bent? I don't know. I'm really distracted by that. I just noticed that when I paused it.
They don't belong to us. It's a different spelling.
He does have a short finger.
H-O-U-R-S. Not Howard's. It's silent. I don't know. Now, on every day, there are 24 hours. 24 of these hours. 12 in the day and 12 in the night. I know I said there are 24 hours in a day. 12 in the day, 12 in the night.
He's really confusing the child.
Made up of a day and a night. Are you stupid?
Poor kid.
I couldn't very well say Monday night. Everybody knows when I say Monday, I'm talking about the 24 hours. Now shut up and listen.
Oh.
Now, on every clock or watch, there are 3 pointers. They're called hands. They point to the hour, all right?
3?
You understand that? There's the hour hand. That's the first hand, the hour hand. The second hand is the minute hand, and the third hand is the second hand.
Reminds me of the Who's on First joke. Not all watches have that second hand. Boy, this is a super confusing lesson for his kid.
Hand, and the third hand is the second.
Second hand? Oh my gosh.
Shut up!
Oh.
We'll do away. Forget about the third hand. Forget it. It's gone, all right? It's gone.
Oh, I know.
2 hands.
So, oh.
On the face of the clock, there are two hands, all right? There's the hour hand, which is the fat hand, and there's the thin hand, which is the minute hand. So you have a fat hand and a thin hand, all right? Fat hand, hours, thin hand, minutes. Right. Now, up the top of the clock, you see the number up there, 1 and 2. 1 and 2 is 12. It's not 3. It would be 3 if you joined them together. We already have a 3 here on the side by itself. We don't need 2 bloody 3s on a clock. So it's 12. All right? 1 and 2 is 12. So when the fat hand and the thin hand are pointing at the 1 and the 2, it is 12 o'clock in the daytime. Because it would be dark and you wouldn't be able to see it.
Oh, jeez. He's not a very patient teacher, is he? But it's funny because, so I homeschooled, and I get the frustration that he's experiencing, because when you're trying to teach something that you know pretty well, and you're trying to teach it to somebody who is confused, and they have all these questions that you didn't necessarily think about, and then when they're asked to you, you can't quite think of a way to explain it properly sometimes, and so you get frustrated. And I think what's funny about this, or to me anyway, is that it's pointing out the absolute confusion that is the English language. So, his poor kid.
Now the thin hand starts to move away from the fat hand. It likes the fat hand. Yes, it likes the fat hand, but if it wants to tell the time, it has to go away from the fat hand. So it moves away from the fat hand, leaving the fat hand at the 1 and the 2, and then it comes over to the 1 here by itself. You see the 1 to the right of the 1 and the 2? Now, that 1 is 5. Because it is, it's 5. 2 is 10, 3 is 15, 4 is 20, 5 is 25,
No,
6
so
is a half.
confusing, right? Oh my goodness. So confusing.
Half. Because 12 is the whole, so 6 is the half. 7 is 25 to, or 35 past.
Oh my goodness.
So now what's actually happening is the thin hand is moving around the clock from the 1 to the 2, which is the 5 and the 10. And while he's doing that, the fat hand is moving slowly away from the 1 and the 2. Yes, because fat hands move slowly, that's right. Fat things waddle away, yes, that's it. And now, by the time the fat hand has got around to the 1, which was the 5, when the minute hand was pointing at it, and the 1 has come back right up to the 1 and the 2, it is now what time? It is not 5 o'clock. It's 1 o'clock.
Of course.
Because when the thin hand points at it, it's minutes.
Oh my goodness.
The fat hand points at it, it's an hour.
Poor child.
Now, you be a good boy and learn how to read the clock.
Yeah, sure.
I'll buy you a digital watch.
Yeah. Right. The digitals are so much better. It is good and important to know how to read a regular clock. What do they call those? Analog? I don't remember, but whatever. But it is confusing as hell, y'all. I mean, I know it. I don't remember being taught it, but I understand it pretty well. I guess I didn't have much issue with figuring it out. I think you also start to figure it out pretty quickly and easily when you're at school and you're waiting for a class to hurry up and be over. You kind of start to put it together if you didn't quite understand it too much at the time. But this was funny. It did. Listen, see, I'm not fully awake. I'm telling you, it did bring back memories, or it did sort of have that feel or flavor of the Who's on First little comedy bit of Abbott and Costello, which is still hilarious because it's funny. The confusion that's going on. You understand the person that's trying to explain it, and yet you understand the confusion of the person who it's being explained to. Much like this. Like, you get the little child's confusion and trying to process what's being told, and the adult's feeling of frustration because it's so simple and clear to them, and that they get impatient when they try to explain it. Kind of reminds me a little bit of an algebra teacher I had. Oh my goodness. I was terrible at math initially in school. I'm not super brilliant when it comes to math still, but I get the basics, right? And when I had to take algebra, it was so freaking confusing because you introduce this element of unknown, the unknown and uncertainty and A's and X's and Y's. It's like, what the heck is going on? And I took it in high school because I had to. My first year, I was a freshman. And the teacher that I had, he had been a college professor. And so it was I feel like it was kind of hard for him to come down to the level of high school students who had no experience or anything at all when it came to things like algebra. And he kept calling it Mickey Mouse stuff. And I remember being really frustrated. And he would just like, this, and this, and this, and this, Mickey Mouse stuff. And I had no clue. I identify a bit with this imaginary child. Well, not imaginary, but the child's not there. But the child, I understand the frustration this child feels. Eventually, I did get algebra. I failed it my first year. And then I had to take it again, and I had the same teacher. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I started off kind of wobbly. But then suddenly, things just clicked. And I got it. And that class became my favorite class. And that teacher became my favorite teacher. He wasn't a mean teacher or anything like that. Okay, picture Higgins from Magnum PI. That's what he looked like, and that's what he reminded me of, except he wasn't British. But he was that very stoic face, very, very straight face, but I liked him. Anyway, I don't know, anything about that brought back memories of that class. Yeah, so my second year, I passed it after the first quarter, and I got it. I understood. And so you just never know when it's going to click with some people. Some people just have trouble figuring out things like that because their mind just work differently, and it's a little bit more difficult. It's more difficult for my my son than my daughter because my son is dyslexic, and so he was like this child here. He had all these confusing, like he couldn't understand when I was trying to explain. And if you think about it, it is confusing as hell. They need to make a clock, which they probably do. Sorry if I'm shaking the camera. They need to make a clock that's got the 1 for the hour, but then underneath it, it's got the 5 and the you know what? They do make some clocks like that. But honestly, I'm so used to my digital that I don't even pay attention much anymore to the other type of clock. But yeah. Okay, well, I'm talking about stuff that makes no sense. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. This was funny. There's not a whole lot more to say about it than that. It kind of puts me in the mood to watch Who's On First again, because this is very reminiscent of that. So, okay, I've got 1 or 2 other things I'm going to move on to. And so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Later, guys.